Hey guys, Toby here. Welcome to the first video of the Kickstarter education program. This is for anyone with chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia. And ultimately, this program is designed to help you as much as possible get the basis right. Start with the foundations first and move forwards. But before we do that, and before we go into the four modules, I want to do this really important module first because you need to understand what are the biggest things that are holding you back. And there's quite a lot, and I've got everything written on the board here. So we're going to go through them one by one. It won't take too long, but this will give you a real insight into navigate your way through chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia. Now, if you haven't heard my story, you can literally just go on our website or find it on YouTube. I'm not going to tell you everything right now, but practically I had chronic fatigue syndrome as a teenager, quite severely. I was in hospital. I missed 280 days of school in a row. I pretty much struggled for 4 years straight. I was bedbound, lost 20 kilos of weight, could barely walk for more than 1 minute. And cut a long story short, I recovered over a period of time. I tried everything. I did everything and more, and I did all the bad stuff, but I did all the good stuff too. And here I am now, 15 years later, fully recovered, and have helped thousands of people. But that's not why I'm here today to tell you about my story. I'm here to help you improve your story. So these are the biggest things holding people back, and one thing that really I think holds a lot of people back, and the comment that I kind of hear the most when I speak to people over the phone with chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia is the dismissive doctors that they go and see. Now, this is not a payout on doctors because there are some fantastic ones, but predominantly when someone goes to the doctor for chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia, you're going to get two answers. One's going to be, I don't know, there's nothing wrong with you. And those kind of comments usually lead to, you probably just got depression, you probably just got anxiety, here's an antidepressant, or maybe go see your psychologist or psychiatrist. Now, that might be useful if that is true, but most of the time it's not. You know that there's actually something deeper that's going on with you. Physiologically, it's not all in your head. You're not going crazy, you're not making these stories up. You know you the best, you know your body the best, so it's important to take that into account when you do come across a particular doctor like that. Now, you might have someone else who actually believes in CFS, a doctor that goes, I think you have chronic fatigue syndrome, you've done all the tests, you've excluded everything, and then they say, sleep better, eat better, and go for a walk, or go for a jog. And there's nothing, again, I'm not paying out doctors, but that's not going to be useful for you, because I remember when I went to the doctors for the first time and they said, oh, you've got chronic fatigue syndrome, after, seeing the 100th doctor around Australia. And that was such a blessing to find someone who actually understood my illness, but at the same time, I said, what do I do now? And he said, just drink heaps of water and eat really well and go to bed and go exercise. And I was like, but I can't even get out of bed. Like, how do I do that? I'm doing the best I can. I can barely lift my head off the pillow. So how am I going to go for an exercise ride or, do something? It was ridiculous. So that's one of the biggest things that holds people back. The reason why that's number one is because that's your first point of call. When you're sick, you go to the doctor, right? It makes sense. But the thing with chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, and I actually have friends who are doctors, it's not really their job to help you with CFS and fibromyalgia. It's just they don't have enough time. That it's not their specialty, and if it is, then that's absolutely great. But majority of the doctors out there aren't really educated that well on the self-help side, the practical side of recovery and helping yourself improve and get healthy again. So that's one thing. The second problem, biggest thing that holds people back, is waiting for a cure or to be fixed. Now, I went through this myself, so we didn't know what was wrong with us, and we didn't know how to improve, my parents and I. So, the biggest thing that we thought is, well, let's find an expert who can fix Toby. And so, we went around for like 2 years trying to find the best people, the acupuncturist, Chinese herbalist, naturopath, diet, psychologist, coach, physical therapist, Like, we tried everything, and it was good, but at the same time, there wasn't, the pieces of the puzzle weren't coming together. And I really struggled with that. But one of the things that really was a turning point for me was when I realized no one could fix me but myself. And what I meant by that is, I went and saw this great guy called Dr. Frederick Warwick. He sadly he's passed away now, but he was like a nutty professor. He had a white lab coat on. You'd have to wait for 4 hours. It was exhausting. You'd have to wait 4 hours just to see him. But he did some really weird stuff. Like, he'd try and do anything to help me. And I think it was like after the 20th session, and I'll give you a quick story. He actually made me hum Happy Birthday whilst he tapped on my back. And I was willing to do anything at that stage, so I was just like, I'll do anything to get better. So anyway, after the 20th session, he said to me, okay, he did all these weird tests, and he goes, okay, my boy, you don't have chronic fatigue syndrome anymore. And I thought, like, I'd improved a little bit, but I didn't feel great. And I said, are you sure? Like, am I? And he's like, yep, you don't have chronic fatigue syndrome anymore. I was like, okay. I'm like, so what do I do now? And he goes, go for a run in the fresh air. And I was like, all right. Hadn't ran in almost, 2 years. So anyway, I put on these brand new joggers that I had because I was just so keen to run. Went for a run along the park and didn't feel good, kept going. And then within 5 minutes, I was exhausted, felt like crap, and had a setback for 2 weeks. Now, the thing about that, the best blessing in that whole story was that those 2 weeks was a real awakening for me, in the sense that I realized no one can fix you but yourself, Toby. No one's going to do it for you. You can get help, you can get support, but do not rely on someone else to fix you. And that was a huge turning point for me, because then I took it into my own power to go and figure out what I needed to do to help myself, which is ultimately what we teach in our main online recovery program. So there's that, waiting for a cure to be fixed. If you're waiting, you're passive, you're not active in your recovery. It's not going to be helpful at all. Guilt. This is one of the biggest things that holds people back, surprisingly. Letting family down. One of the biggest things that I see with my clients, and one thing that I felt with my parents, is that I felt so bad for being sick. I felt like I was letting them down, and in every way. Like, I wasn't down to go to school, I was costing them money, I was having to go to the doctors all the time. I felt shit. My emotional energy was crap, so I just wasn't in a good mood, and I was quite rude and just irritable, and just wasn't the person I wanted to be around my family. So I'm sure you can relate to that. Beating yourself up. That's one of the other things. I was beating myself up for so long, which made me feel guilty as well. And that's one of the things that I see a lot of people come to us at that beginning stage of this guilt, and we shift them out of it really quickly. And I'll help you in this educational program with that. Not doing what you should be doing. Now, whenever we say we should be doing something, we're putting on ourselves that we should be doing something that we're not, and so we feel guilty about that. I'm sure you can relate to that. So, try and cut out all the shoulds that you have in your life. This is probably one of the biggest ones. Holding on to the past. How many of you hold on to that past identity, that self? For me, it was probably 2 years of holding on to who I was for the last 16 years of my life. We all have an identity, and we all create an identity in our minds. And so for me, I was a basketball player. I was going to state. My dream was to have a career in basketball. And so that was the path that I was on. And then all of a sudden, I get glandular fever. I kept overtraining. My body just shuts down after 6 months. I just literally can't function. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, I've got chronic fatigue syndrome with no known cure. And I couldn't even lift my head off the pillow. Yet 2 years before that, I could run all day, every day, without even thinking about it. And now I have to think about just like standing up and like walking to the toilet. It was very hard. So I was holding on to like that old me. And so it took me about a good 2 years to accept where I was at, the acceptance of yourself and your situation. And that's one of the key points, is to, one, get rid of the guilt, but also accept where you're at. Because until you do, you're probably not going to move forwards that fast. That's a big one. Letting go of the past is very important because, you know, life is a process of ups and downs and swings and roundabouts, and until we actually allow ourselves to, okay, that was that, and now this is now, and what can I do about it, we're going to stay stuck. We've got here, putting everyone's needs in front of your own. That's one of the biggest problems that I see, especially with mothers, and I know it's not easy out there for all the mums out there, but when you're constantly, like 100% of the time, putting everyone's needs before your own, it's a disaster. And that's what leads people into this situation in the first place a lot of the time. So even if it's only 50%, you put yourself in, you know, first in front of everyone else, or at least balance it up a little bit, it'll be a lot more useful for you in your recovery. But you have to put yourself first. You can't literally put everyone else in front of you and then not move forwards. It's impossible to see change like that. And I know that's really hard to hear. Like I know how hard it is probably hearing that. And so you need to make it work for you. Like it needs to be flexible. And I know in my main program, you know, the CFS Help Online Recovery Program, we literally have 50% of our clients are mums, like in 42 countries. So it's universal. And we always say to them, I don't want you to try and put yourself first all the time, because I know it's not in your nature to do that, but like one thing you could do is find some time each and every day to do the things that you know is going to enhance your life and move you forwards. So that's just that's a little bit of a tip there for you. But yeah, you need to stop putting everyone in front of yourself, which means you need to have boundaries. Like you need to have boundaries with your family, with your loved ones, with friends, with work, if that's something that's still going on in your life, or study. Boundaries to know where you're at and what you can do and what you can't do and what you can set up for your future in terms of progressing. Massive key. That's pretty much what we start with in our online recovery program in terms of finding our baseline, which I'll talk to you about soon. Fear of getting worse. So one of the biggest things is that constant fear and worry of fear of getting worse, and this is where you start searching on Google all the time and you start to read all these negative different stories. You have to remember that everyone's got a story, and some people hold on to their identity in that story for a long, long time. So don't listen to everybody out there. Focus on yourself and focus on what you can do. One of the other fears that people have is fear of sometimes getting better. You know, one of the things with chronic fatigue syndrome is you get so used to living that life that you forget how to live normal life. And it's just like, well, I know who I am when I'm sick, so who am I when I am better? Like, what do I do? What responsibilities am I going to have? It's scary out there, it's fast, it's like I've got to deal with real life now on top of the CFS. Like it's a progression. And so if you have that fear, just know that it's a progression. It's not going to, you know, eventually as you get better, you'll start to live a little bit more life again. You'll start to do things like socializing, go to events, maybe even work or study or go training or start up in sports again, whatever it is. As you start to live life again, you will ultimately just feel more natural. It's getting used to it again. It's progressing. We have a whole module in our main program which is about lifestyle progression, because I realize the importance of, you know, walking you through that process. So that you know, fear of getting worse, but fear of getting better is actually one of the common things that holds a lot of people back. And the last one, which is kind of ultimately, you know, pretty self-explanatory, but being in victim mode. Now, this is tough because people with chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia are kind of set up to be in victim mode, because like let's face it, like the doctors don't believe in you. Not all of them, some. Your friends and family sometimes think you're making it up. People in the outside world just look at you and go, but you look fine. And you know, like, but you're still feeling so crap inside. And so it's like, how can you not feel bad about that? How can you not be in a victim mode about that? So it's something you can be really self-aware of, and something that you need to own it. And I think being in victim mode kind of comes back to holding on to the past. And it really is, because if we're looking at the past, we kind of feel depressed about it. Just know that what you're going through is 100% real, but also know that you can change it and improve on it. And whether that's 5 or 10%, 20%, 30%, all the way up to 100%, whatever you want to aim for to start with, that's absolutely fine. But the fact that you're watching this video kind of says a fair bit about you, the type of person you are. You're not someone who's going to give up. You're not someone who just like literally just becomes passive. You're probably someone who's normally really positive, normally really go-getting, and normally a type A personality, someone who's a high achiever in your life. That wouldn't surprise me if that's you. So, and I hope you're smiling listening to that, because yeah, I'm sure that is you. You're not a lazy person, all right, by nature. And it's a bit of a catch-22, unfortunately, but that's just how it is. So anyway, I hope this video really clears it up for you. Let's get into the 3 main modules of this free educational recovery series. This will really help you get started, get the foundations right and start moving forwards. See you in the next video.